This might end up being a short since I don't think it'll be long enough to have as a full video, but I have had a bit of an epiphany. Or maybe it's more accurate to say a brain blast. Yeah, I had a brain blast yesterday on the topic of why the Bible tells us to leave revenge to God. The specific verses that ascribe this are Romans 12:19. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. And in Hebrews 10:30, for we know him who said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. And then the Lord will judge his people. There is also another verse in the Old Testament that references revenge, Deuteronomy 32:35. It says, vengeance is mine, and recompense for the time when their foot shall slip, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and their doom comes swiftly. But I believe he was talking specifically about the punishment for the rebellious and idolatrous Israelites who rejected him and incurred his wrath and, yeah, all that stuff, what the Israelites normally do. From my research and own general knowledge, it seems the established reasoning for this is that, unlike human beings who are inherently flawed, God never takes revenge from impure motives. His vengeance is for the purpose of punishing those who have offended and rejected him. Shout out to Got Questions for that one. And it does make sense, by the way. Like, it would be practically impossible for humans to take revenge on someone for something while keeping pure intentions. There would most likely be some form of hatred in your heart for this person. Maybe your revenge would require you to do things that are sinful, like stealing from someone who stole from you, or committing adultery with someone because your spouse cheating on you, or maybe even killing someone depending on how badly you want to hurt the person that wronged you. So, that checks out. But here's my brain blast, right? God is unconditionally loving. God is also completely just and infinitely righteous. But another thing that I have noticed is that God can also be extremely pragmatic. So what if there is also a pragmatic reason for why God tells us to leave revenge to him? I draw this conclusion from the war between the Israelites and the Canaanites, and also the Amalekite War, among other things. These are the wars where God ordered Israel to completely eradicate the enemy nations, leaving nothing alive. This war was a long time coming for Canaan, as God had given them many years to turn from the evil acts they had in their culture, including but not limited to incest, child sacrifice, homosexuality, bestiality, etc. In their case, God had basically used Israel to bring judgment upon them. While in the case of the Amalekites, they themselves had made an enemy of Israel, attacking them, joining forces with Canaan against them, and seeking to do them all manner of harm and oppression. People always try to use this to say how God can't be righteous and he's evil because God's order would have included any children in the nation alive at the time. But first of all, I don't really think those are serious arguments anyway. They tend to either be naive or misinformed. Not wiping out everyone leaves remnants with resentment in their heart that would one day come back to bear their fangs at the people of Israel, causing basically future problems. It's kind of like the same reasoning Goblin Slayer had for killing the goblin kids in episode 1 of the show. Even the kids would never forget, and they would surely come back for their recompense. The people from these nations, the Canaanites especially, as I mentioned earlier, carried horrid practices in their culture. And immediately after God commanded that the Canaanites be completely wiped out, God gave a bit of his reasoning. And it went something like this. Otherwise, they will teach you to follow all of the detestable things that they do in the worshiping of their gods, and you will sin against the Lord your God. Both pragmatic approaches to the situation were done solely for the best outcome of his people. But the funny thing? It seems that most people who try to use this to discredit God don't know this, but the Israelites in both cases actually didn't obey God. Must be a day that ends in Y. They left many Canaanites alive, actually, and guess what happened next? exactly what God said would happen occurred. Israel became compromised with Canaanite culture and fell into idolatry time and time again. They also left many Amalekites alive. Guess what happened next? Just a couple decades after, the Amalekites had built up enough to attack again, taking David, Israel's king at the time, and his men's families captive. Several hundred years after that, a descendant of the Amalekites, Haman, I think that's how you pronounce his name, tried to have the entire Jewish people exterminated on his Hitler-ish. Had the people of Israel just done their jobs, that would have never happened. None of that would have ever happened. And I also have another bit of reasoning that also comes from a purely pragmatic standpoint. As much as I doubt there were many or any at all, anyone in these nations that lost their lives but were sinless, but were innocent, they technically ended up in a much better position than they would have been being a prisoner of war in the barbaric times that this war took place in, and also a better spot than they would have been had they been indoctrinated into the evil practices of the cultures they came from. They would have ended up going straight to heaven, being right with God. No pain, no sin, no evil, none of the nonsense that me and you have to deal with down here in this day and age, just all that is good. But anyway, that's like, if I ever talk about that again, that's like a topic for an entirely different video. But to segue back to the main point of this video, what if the pragmatic reason why God tells us to leave revenge to him is that we as Christians would struggle to carry the spiritual weight of revenge? As an active, practicing, Bible-believing Christian, our moral compass does tend to be much stronger on average than the average person due to the conviction we feel from the Spirit. A lot of things people of the world don't really give any credit or mind to, we do, because we know the truth of them, especially sin. If your revenge requires you to do things that you know God wouldn't approve of, especially if it's a multi-step thing, like getting revenge for murder on your Frank Castle or trying to make a coworker look bad that made you look bad, would you still be able to appear before God the way you used to? Sing the way you used to? Read the Bible the way you used to? No, I don't think so. I think you'd hate yourself, or more directly, hate the sin that was building within you. And because you want to stop feeling that way, you would stop doing those things altogether. I doubt those feelings would go away even after you do get your revenge. So maybe the reason God tells us to leave revenge to him isn't just because we lack the purity to administer revenge properly, but also because the process of getting revenge would be too detrimental to our spirit. And once again, it's just God watching out for his children. This is definitely gonna be a theme somewhere in Crucible.